over a year ago now, I did a video on why nobody plays Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon, and nowadays, all of you probably realize that the Why Nobody Plays series is like a huge thing on this channel, but that was actually the very first one that I did. I wanted to talk about Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon because at that point, I had been building Blue Eyes, I've been playing Blue Eyes, and I got a lot of comments from people saying, why aren't you playing Chaos Max Dragon? This card looks so crazy good, why is no one playing it in the metagame? So I wanted to do a video about that, and the Why Nobody Plays series has changed a little bit. If you look at like the first 3 or 4, they're pretty mean. They are some of those videos are like the reasons that people that haven't watched my channel in like a year or two really don't like me. They think that I'm just talking down to casuals all the time, and I completely understand that. If the only videos that you watched of mine were like those first couple Why Nobody Plays, yeah, I probably seem like a pretty mean person. But over time, I'm sure many of you have noticed that the Why Nobody Plays series has sort of transitioned into a more educational series for casual players looking into the competitive landscape. I never did change the title to like Why Nobody Plays these cards in the metagame. That is just such a silly title to put for something that's way too long-winded. There's no real reason to do that. I think most people figure out within like a minute of clicking on the video that it's only talking about competitive play. Anyway though, I'm talking about this because in today's video we're going to talk about Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon again. This is sort of a revisiting of Blue Eyes Chaos Max Dragon, a re-evaluation of the card. The card still isn't very competitive. I'll just give you that warning ahead of time. However, many things have changed. There are some good things that have happened to improve the deck in the metagame and against other rogue strategies, and also there are some bad things as well. So in today's video, we're going to cover the good and bad things about Chaos Max Dragon that have happened over the past year and a half. The version of me that made that original Chaos Max video probably would have started off with the negatives, but I've learned from that. So in today's video, we're going to talk about the positives first. There are actually many good things that happened to Chaos Max Dragon over the past year and a half, starting off with the Incantations. These cards are excellent supporting cards for ritual archetypes. This is especially true for decks like Chaos Max that can't use pre-preparation of rights, and this is really cool because previously when I was evaluating any ritual archetype, I think that a lot of my evaluation actually stemmed from how good can this deck use pre-preparation of rights. That's actually why I overestimated how good Vendread to be, because they looked like they were doing some cool things with pre-prep. However, in the case of Incantations, you can play them in virtually any ritual-based strategy. Yes, they have a drawback. You can't use them for extra deck stuff, and you can't you have to work around them a little bit, but overall, the Incantations are an excellent supporting cast to the ritual archetypes that many people like, including Chaos Max Dragon. As far as on-theme support goes, the Blue Eye strategy also got access to Bingo Machine Go in the recent Legendary Duelist Kaiba version, and that is an incredibly powerful card in the Chaos Max deck. It might not actually be that good in the pure Blue Eyes decks that a lot of people are playing, but if you're playing Chaos Max, I think it's a card that you'll probably include at least 1 or 2 copies of. It's one of the only cards that actually effectively searches Chaos form. You have cards like Manju that can grab it, and you have some other really bad cards that can grab it, but overall, one of the biggest issues with the Blue Eyes Chaos Max deck is that you don't have a lot of cards to grab Chaos form. You can search Chaos Max off of Melody of the Awakening Dragon, which is really cool, but when you're trying to search the ritual spells, a lot of the times you just have to draw that Manju, or you have to draw all of your like cards like Pot of Desires and Trade In, or you have to draw the ritual spells without searches, and that can definitely hurt your consistency overall. So the fact that Bingo Machine Go helps you get to your ritual spells and helps you get to Chaos Max and helps you get to any of the Blue Eyes cards that you might need, like alternative White Eyes Dragon, there are many reasons to play copies of Bingo Machine Go, and yeah, that's a very helpful piece of support for Blue Eyes directly. Another cool thing about playing Chaos Max nowadays that wasn't actually around when I originally made that Why Nobody Plays video is that you have Nightmares, and the reason that Nightmares matter, by the way, is that if you can summon Nightmare Mermaid, that's all you have to do. If you can summon Nightmare Mermaid, you can summon Nightmare Iblee from your deck, and then make a Link 2 monster and give the Nightmare Iblee to your opponent in defense position. Iblee has 0 defense, which makes it a prime candidate to run over with Chaos Max Dragon, which will inflict exactly 8,000 damage to your opponent. That combo is super cool and is actually a huge reason to play Chaos Max Dragon at all right now. Maybe it's not as consistent as other decks out there, but the Nightmare Iblee combo is simply hilarious and effective if you're trying to make use of Chaos Max Dragon. And lastly, one of the biggest arguments against Chaos Max Dragon is actually just not really in the metagame anymore, and that's that many people aren't playing kaijus in their main or side decks. This is one of the easiest and simplest ways to get rid of a Chaos Max. It requires no input from your opponent. All they have to do is draw that kaiju. They don't have to do any crazy combo, and they can just immediately get rid of that Chaos Max that you built your entire deck around. Overall, this is definitely good for Chaos Max Duelists. I don't think it matters as much as some people would think. I think Chaos Max Dragon, very much so like the Egyptian God cards, you know I gotta fit those into this video. There are cards like that that look really good when they're on the field, but that's that's not really the issue. The issue is getting them on the field in the first place, and that's always been the biggest problem with the Chaos Max deck, is that it's simply too inconsistent compared to other decks out there. Not even comparing it to the meta decks, even just comparing it to other rogue decks, it's simply way too inconsistent and loses to so many different hand traps out there, it's not even funny. However, even though I've just spent like over half the video talking about why Chaos Max Dragon is a lot better in 2019 versus 2017, you might have noticed that there hasn't really been any Chaos Max decks topping even regional qualifiers. Just because Chaos Max Dragon has more benefits to it in 2019 than it did 2 years ago or a year and a half ago doesn't make it a good deck by the 2019 standards. That's the biggest issue with Chaos Max, is that even though it has all these new things going for it, that's not actually enough to propel it into being a competitive strategy. Certainly for people that are looking to play Chaos Max at their locals or maybe even a regional qualifier, they're going to be very happy that it has all this new support and these new options as far as the deck building goes, but overall it doesn't really affect the impact of Chaos Max Dragon on the metagame because it's simply still too inconsistent and not versatile enough to actually make an impact against other decks. I'm saying this because you're probably going to notice, if you've been paying attention, that most of this video is talking about positive things. I don't actually have that many new negative things to talk about. Almost all the negative things that I talked about in the original video, the Why Nobody Plays Chaos Max Dragon video that I posted a year and a half ago, still stay true in 2019. So even though I'm only adding a couple new negatives, keep in mind that there's all those previous negatives added on as baggage. Anyway, the first negative is that link monsters can't be switched to defense position. This is a huge negative for the Chaos Max deck because when you take that aspect out of Chaos Max, it just looks even worse than it already is. The Iblee combo is very cool, but you won't always be able to summon a Chaos Max and summon a Nightmare Mermaid and still have enough cards to actually deal damage to your opponent. That doesn't always happen. It requires you not to draw the Iblee. It requires a whole bunch of things to happen in the right way, and oftentimes it is not something that you can actually do on a consistent basis. It is still a very cool combo, but it's not something good enough to actually make Chaos Max a viable rogue strategy. So keep in mind that one of the biggest issues with Chaos Max Dragon is that, yeah, link monsters can't be switched to defense, which means that Chaos Max Dragon doesn't have that amazing double piercing damage effect. That might not seem like a big deal to a lot of people, but if you remember many of the original Chaos Max OTKs, outside of just like the Iblee combo, people were using things like Swords of Concealing Light or Book of Eclipse just to flip your opponent's guys face down so you can inflict that double piercing damage and hopefully OTK your opponent. And that leads us to my last negative point in this video, and also the biggest reason that Chaos Max Dragon, even with all the good things that it has now at its disposal, is not seeing play in 2019 even as a rogue strategy. You see, the thing about kaiju monsters was that, yeah, they're a really good counter to Chaos Max Dragon because it just gets rid of it immediately, but that required your opponent to actually be playing kaijus, and they had to draw them at the right time. Oftentimes, if you were able to actually summon the Chaos Max Dragon and get the rest of your combo off, you could just OTK your opponent before they had a chance to draw the kaiju monster. However, there is a much bigger issue in extra decks right now, and that is Borreload Dragon. Borreload Dragon is pretty much the biggest slap in the face to Chaos Max Dragon players because, unlike a kaiju, Borreload Dragon doesn't just deal with the Chaos Max Dragon, it actually steals it, and then your opponent gets to kill you with the Chaos Max Dragon that you based your entire deck around. Chaos Max Dragon obviously dies to any effects that don't target or destroy, and Borreload's stealing effect does neither of those things, which makes it an excellent counter to Chaos Max Dragon. Possibly most importantly though, Borreload Dragon sees more play in extra decks than kaijus ever saw in main or side decks, and also because it's an extra deck monster, your opponent doesn't have to draw a specific card to out your Chaos Max Dragon, they just have to assemble enough cards to summon a Borreload Dragon in the first place. This problem is amplified by the fact that many Chaos Max Dragon players aren't actually playing any defensive cards because the Chaos Max engine takes up too many spots, and now you have a situation where every single person has an automatic out to your entire deck without actually thinking about it or planning for it in advance. In other words, there are many new positives and reasons to play the Chaos Max strategy, and overall the deck's consistency has gone up a lot since 2017. However, this simply does not outweigh the negatives, especially Borreload Dragon, and that is a huge reason to still not play Chaos Max Dragon in 2019 either. Obviously, if you're just playing for fun, you can play whatever you want, and I get comments from people all the time saying, well, why do you make these videos talking only about competitive play? Why don't you analyze cards from a casual standpoint, and the reason is simply every card is good casually. I've actually made an entire video talking about that. That's one of the many good things about casual play, and I actually have a video planned in the future for maybe 5 really cool things about casual play, and that's one of them. You can play whatever you want against your friends. It doesn't really matter. You're not going to tournaments. There's no pressure on you to actually make a good deck and play a consistent strategy. In those ways, that's the best time to play decks like Chaos Max Dragon. But on this channel, we mostly focus on competitive play and helping people get that first invite or that first regional top, and if people are interested in becoming more competitive, they have to understand why cards like Chaos Max Dragon aren't actually good. Anyway though, hope you guys enjoyed today's update video on Chaos Max Dragon. I got a lot of these questions and comments on that previous video from people saying, what about these cards? What about the incantations? What about Borreload Dragon? How does this adjust like your evaluation of Chaos Max? I thought it was really good to do an update video now just because all these cards sort of should be talked about in regards to the Chaos Max strategy. I'll see you guys later though. Thank you so much for watching today's video. Goodbye.